Good morning and welcome to Sunday School at Cedar Lane United Methodist Church. This week's lesson is from Romans 1, verses 8 through 17. Today we begin a new unit titled Faith and Salvation. Over the next 4 lessons, we will explore the role of faith and to whom salvation is offered. At the time of the writing of Romans, which was approximately AD 57, Paul had never been in Rome. He did, however, know the people of Rome. In chapter 16 of Romans, he personally greets 26 people by name and several others generally, the church that meets at or the sister of, etc. First on that list are Priscilla and Aquila. We know them from Acts, where they worked with Paul for several years. They met because Emperor Claudius of Rome, who reigned from 41 to 54 AD, kicked all of the Jews and the Christians out of Rome because of the turmoil that was occurring between the Jews that believed in Jesus and those that did not. After Claudius died, all were allowed to move back into Rome. Now, Priscilla and Aquila were Christians before they met Paul. So how had they come to believe the gospel since they lived in Rome? And if you remember from the 2nd chapter of Acts, there were Jews from all over the known world present in Jerusalem that Pentecost. The NIV has a map showing the 14 locations mentioned. And I took a picture of that map, and I'd like to share that. Just give me a half a second here. Where did I put that? This and okay, can you all see that? All right. These are the 14 nations. Maybe I can blow this up a little bit. Back out just a touch. You can see Rome up here. I colored it in green, but it doesn't look green on this. Is number 13 in the list. But these are all of the places, and they were Egypt, Cyrene, I didn't know where Cyrene was, Crete, and all over the Parthian Empire and all of these places. So we've got a real list there. Some 3,000 accepted Jesus as their Messiah on that first Pentecost day. But they didn't stay in Jerusalem. After a period of time, they would have returned home. With changed hearts, they witnessed to what they had seen and believed. And this was probably how the church in Rome began and continued to grow. The importance of a growing and faithful church in Rome should not be underestimated. It was the center of government and trade in the Roman Empire. The gospel could easily spread from there via the merchants and visitors to Rome that the church witnessed to. At that time, there was a saying that all roads lead to Rome, which is still in use. It was literally true. Rome built over 250,000 miles of roads, of which some 50,000 miles were actually paved. My goodness, that's a lot of roads. I want to share the screen with you again, but I don't think I gave myself the, let's see if I did this. Sunday school materials. Now, there are I showed you the one, but I want to show you just how much this works out. Now, Rome built all those roads, right? So some modern guys came up with another way of looking at this. I'm going to read a little bit about it. It says, to illustrate, which I'm going to choose this. To illustrate, designers Benedict Gross and Philip Schmidt worked with digital geographer Raphael Ryman to select 486,713 starting points on a 26,503,400 kilometer, or 10,233 and 40 square mile area of Europe. It's a grid of Europe. From where they created an algorithm to calculate the best route from each point to Rome. So it looks like a map of a river, doesn't it? But it's not. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? As we look at this, but you can see, here's Rome down here, and all of these points. They used an algorithm to set those points. They didn't actually sit there and Google and do however 486,000 different points. They also did one in the United States to cities named Rome, and it was crazy. Now, Paul wrote Romans most likely from Corinth or from Cenchrea in the spring of AD 57 on his third missionary journey. He was there for approximately 3 months, which would allow him sufficient time to compose this masterful presentation of the gospel of Jesus. I'm going to start by reading verses 8 through 10. First, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for all of you, because your faith is being reported all over the world. God, whom I serve in my spirit in preaching the gospel of his Son, is my witness how I constantly remember you in my prayers all the time, at all times, and I pray that now at last, by God's will, the way may be opened for me to come to you. Turn my page too fast. After his introduction in verses 1 through 7, the first thing Paul does is to offer thanks to God through Jesus for all of them because of their faith. Everywhere, people were talking about the faith of the believers in Rome. It's always nice to hear that somebody thanks God for you. It gives us a real boost, doesn't it? Then to find out that that person is continually remembering you in prayer before God, that really tells you how much they care about you and about your life in Christ. Now, Paul is adding to that to say, I really have wanted to come see you. I wanted to minister among you. But note his attitude. He was always submitting himself to God. He wasn't forcing it. He was submitting himself to God and his will. Psalm 27. Oh, I need to read another section of verse. We're going to read verses 11 through 15. I long to see you so that I may impart to you some spiritual gift to make you strong. That is, that you and I may be mutually encouraged by each other's faith. I do not want you to be unaware, brothers and sisters, that I planned many times to come to you, but have been prevented from doing so until now, in order that I might have a harvest among you, just as I have had among the other Gentiles. I am obligated both to Greeks and non-Greeks, both to the wise and the foolish. That is why I'm so eager to preach the gospel also to you who are in Rome. Psalm 27:17 says, as our iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. Yes, Paul wanted to share with those in Rome what God had revealed to him, but he was also willing to learn and to build up his faith by them. And that needs to be our attitude as well. We can always learn from each other, even if it's just patience. It's supposed to be funny. As you all put up with me and we learn to live together as brothers and sisters. Paul circles around back to his desire to come to Rome, but then explains why he has not come. He was obligated. He was duty bound and had a debt to pay, as the Amplified Bible says, to preach to the Greeks and the non-Greeks. Now, we often hear in the Bible the terms Jews and Gentiles. We kind of know what that means. Jews are Jews and everybody else is a Gentile. But our author points out that Gentiles could be further subdivided into two more groups. According to Greek understanding, there were Greeks and there were barbarians. Everything the barbarians spoke in their foreign language sounded like babble to them. And the word literally kind of sounds like bar, 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 bar. So they're barbarians. And then the word literally means sounding like babbling nonsense. And he uses that phrase to the wise and to the foolish. And that's kind of another parallelism that's like what you find in the Old Testament. He's talking about the same people. The Greeks are the wise folks. The barbarians are the fools. Just as our pastors preach to us each Sunday to build us up, encourage us, and strengthen us in our walk with Christ, so Paul wanted to preach to those in Rome. And while preaching does involve evangelism, that's not the sole purpose, even for Paul. He understood that his experience with God was different from theirs and that they could learn something from one another. Let's read our last two verses here. For I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jews, then to the Gentile. For in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith. Now, Paul is not ashamed of the good news, the glad tidings, the gospel of Christ. Yes, it involved Jesus dying on a cross, and to the Jews, that meant he was cursed. Deuteronomy 21:23 says, if someone is guilty of a capital offense and put to death, and their body is exposed on a pole, you must not leave the body hanging on the pole overnight. Be sure to bury it the same day, because anyone who is hung on a pole is under God's curse. So that would have been their attitude towards somebody who was hung on a cross or a pole. Through crucifixion, which was considered to be shameful, full of shame, God brought about a salvation for all those who believe, both the Jew and the Gentile. Now, this meant that no longer were the Jews or the Gentiles excluded from a relationship with God. Now they were welcome to when they believed in Jesus. This good news of Jesus' death and resurrection carried the power of God to bring salvation to all who believe. Paul now gives us what we might consider the theme of the book of Romans, the revelation of the righteousness of God through the gospel, a righteousness available to man through faith in God's Christ. Now, I need to be careful right now how far I go because I don't want to step into next week's lesson. As I mentioned, Abraham, he did not acquire his righteousness because of all the things he did. He acquired that righteousness. In fact, he didn't acquire it at all. He was given to him because he believed God, and it was accounted to him as righteousness. That's why he's called the father of all who believe. 2 Corinthians 5:21 says, God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. In Christ, God sees us as righteous. Now, the hard part for us is to put on that righteousness, to become righteous. We all know our own flesh, how it sometimes drags us where we don't want to go, to do things we don't want to do, or to say things we don't want to say, because we regret them afterwards. So the putting on of that righteousness is a part of a process that we call sanctification. Now, I know this is kind of a silly example, but I look at it as this. I think of God as having given us a closet full of beautiful clothes. But he sees us as righteous, but we've got to reach into that closet, pull out the clothes, and actually put them on. And I know that's a little, excuse me, that's a silly way of thinking about it, and it breaks down really fast, but you know, it gives you the idea. Positionally, God sees us as righteous. Now we've got to live it out. And that's the putting on of the clothes and the putting on and becoming righteous in the sight of God. I hope that we're always able to live out that salvation that God gives us. May we always progress in our becoming the children of God. God bless you. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next week.